All right, we're back here on the Chase Thomas Cup podcast, taping this on a Friday morning. He is Austin Price, writer and talker over at Volquest.com, a very good sports and Tennessee sports specifically website that you should go subscribe to, like myself, today if you are not already. Austin, which month is the hardest for you to do your job?
I would say February because it's wintertime, it's a dead month, and there's just not a whole lot going on. So, I would probably go then. I like when it's more fast paced, when there's stuff going on. It makes work more enjoyable. When it's more stagnant and you're having to try to search for content or things to talk about, it's just I don't know. It's just not as much fun in my opinion.
I'm imagining February changed a lot because obviously National Signing Day and what that was. So now you kind of have this break in February. Do coaches have the same kind of thing? Do they really get away? Do they actually unplug all that much over the last month?
Yes and no. Like, they get the break from having kids on campus, but they're still having recruiting calls, which that'll never really end. And look, coaches are tinkerers by habit, so they spend the whole month, working on spring practice and getting a jump start on your opponents for next year. And, like they're constantly doing things. Now, there is a little more downtime. Like Coach Garner, he had knee surgery during the month of February because he had the knee replaced. So, there's a little more time there than, there used to be. And let's face it, there's a big push right now for there to be more dead time because, college football is losing, and college basketball too, because of the invention of NIL and the transfer portal. College coaches in all sports are looking to get into the professional ranks because it's just a lot easier. So you've got to find ways to kind of combat that. And the easiest way to do it is to have more dead periods when you don't have to have kids on campus and be a constant spin wheel of recruiting.
What do you think is the most realistic immediate change to the college coaching calendar? What do you think it is?
I think you just find more dead space, probably, sometime in spring. I think ultimately January is going to always be open. February is dead. I think you could, even put part of March as dead. And then, coaches can get out on the road, late April, early May and go into evaluation. They're not going to want that to end, but if it got tweaked a little bit and you had an extra week there to have a little bit of downtime, I don't think coaches would be upset. And then I'd love for them to, go dead all the way from the end of June all the way through September 1. I think that would make things a lot easier because you're really dead for most of that anyways. You're dead in all of August as far as kids coming on campus. You're dead in most of July, but they opened it back up for like a week. And I just don't think that's necessary. I don't think enough stuff happens in that 1 week because coaches are getting ready for, fall camp that it warrants opening back up.
So that when do you think a timeline is on that? Do you think that happens? So, who decides that? Who is the ultimate decider in when dead periods get moved around? How does that work?
Well, it'll be the NCAA in conjunction with, coaches and kind of, lots of stuff gets submitted and voted on. And, I think you see something like that more probably in the next 6 months, and again, I don't think it'll be drastic. I think it'll be small tweaks to help everybody out. But again, I think it's the combination of NIL and the transfer portal. Kids used to could bounce, but they had to, sit out a year without winning a waiver. Now they can just bounce anytime. Well, that's fine. But the problem is when you incorporate NIL, you get into a lot of this tampering that's going on. And kids, man, they're shooting their shot. You can't blame them for it. They're asking for the moon, and that's in all sports across the board. You're going to ask for maybe more than you're actually worth, and see if somebody's willing to, come up with the NIL dollars, which is really, I understand why Nick Saban's making the stance he has. I also think it's a bit unrealistic. Nick makes, over $10 million a year. What does he do? What do coaches do? Do they go to the place they get paid, right? They don't go to the school and go, I'm going to cut you the hometown. That really rarely happens. So, like, most of these kids are going to ask for a ton of money, and you can't blame them for shooting their shot. I mean, some of them, this is um, the most likely scenario to get some money during this time, and so I just hate it's turned into what it's turned into, because it is taking away from the game off the field. But once the players get between the white lines, college football is still college football.
Mm-hmm. And it's not like fans notice. Like, you're not gonna know. Like, I think it's always funny when people are like, "Oh, just play for the love of the game." It's like, you had no idea before. You have no idea after. Like, it's not gonna change your enjoyment of it. Is anybody gonna get involved early on the ground floor here with the Nealon Hotel, where they're like, "Hey, I know. Look, I'm a rising junior here. When is that Nealon Hotel coming about? Because I'm ready for some NIL stuff there." Do you think that's going to happen more as more businesses pop up, that guys are like forecasting what's happening around Knoxville as opportunities for NIL?
Yeah, maybe.
Mm,
At the end of the day, and this is kind of where, like, I think I think Nick Saban is kind of pushing the whole, like, hey, let's get rid of collectives, because at
mm,
the end of the day, like, a lot of these kids are getting paid through collectives,
mm,
and they're getting their money. If you take those away, it's going to be the top 1-2%, the Bryce Youngs of the world, the Hendon
mm,
Hookers of the world are going to get theirs. But is Brew McCoy really going to get his in a situation where it's the top 1-2%? I don't know. I mean, I think that again, they went this way for a reason. Congress got involved and basically smacked the NCAA around for their inability to take advantage of student athletes and make billions of dollars, and they got no piece of the pie. Now the toothpaste is out of the tube, and I hear people in Congress, I hear people talking about good luck trying to put the toothpaste back in the tube.
mm,
You got two or three of Tommy Tuberville, Joe Manchin. It takes more than a couple of people pushing this,
mhm,
and are bipartisan, people going across the board going to go, yeah, I'm going to limit what those athletes can make. I'm going to limit what these students can make. These 18, 19, 20, 21-year old kids. I'm going to tell them they can make no more than $50,000.
mhm.
Is that really going to happen? Because I just don't see it. Maybe it does though.
Yeah. Someone Tennessee recently landed that you did not think that they were seriously in on was who?
Oh man, I can't say that there's anybody. I mean, like,
Mm,
J.J. Harrell was a surprise, but he wasn't as a surprise. I mean, Tennessee's been the leader since January. It was a surprise when he did it. I think it was a
mm,
surprise to someone on campus when he did it. But I wouldn't call it a surprise. Most of these kids, you just everybody, look, we all have relationships with
mm,
the prospect or with people on campus. We got to know where things stand. It's probably 1% of 100 kids that come here that really come out of left field. I mean, most of
mm,
it's telegraphed. I mean, I love that JJ Harrell was kind of out of left field. I mean,
mhm,
it makes my job a little more hard. I probably wouldn't be happy if somebody else had it, but no one else had it. you
mhm,
know. And so, like, I think it's great that he kind of did it on his own, and didn't put out the eyeball emoji tweets and 2 o'clock and all that stuff. So I enjoyed that, and again, it very very rarely does one surprise you um, that they land. James Pierce might have surprised some other people that
mhm.
he signed with Tennessee, but not me. I mean, like, Tennessee had been working that one extremely hard. So again, the way it all plays out and the way it's kind of crafted, it's really hard to be totally shocked when they land anybody.
Is JJ an inside guy or an outside guy?
He's an inside guy
Okay.
who can
Uh,
play outside. He's kind of like Hyatt.
mm,
Hyatt can pump out and play outside if needed, but for the most part with the slot.
okay. What's been the biggest staff difference in how they recruit now versus how they recruited when Heupel first arrived?
I think their board has grown. I think when they first got here, they were, because they were battling the NCAA sanction stuff. I think that they were recruiting a different kind of player, and probably
Mhm,
the board wasn't as big as it needed to be. I think their board is much bigger. I think their interest level from top end guys is greater.
mm,
And part of that's because, the NCAA cloud's it's kind of went away. I mean, I know it's not done, but, I think everybody acknowledges there's not going to be a postseason ban. And really, that's all that kids care about. Kids don't care if you're under 2 scholarships. They don't care if you can't go out for a week recruiting. Like, that doesn't affect them. It has no effect on kids. It has no effect on anybody. It has no effect on the fans. The only person that affects are the coaches. So, like, the only thing that would affect fans, affect the players, is the ability to go to a bowl game, the ability to play in the Orange Bowl, the ability to compete to play in the playoff. And none of that stuff is happening. And so thus, I just don't think it's, I don't think it's as big as it could have been.
So it's not going to happen, you don't think? You don't think this is going to end up with a postseason ban of any kind for Tennessee?
I don't think the NCAA can really go down that route. I think they would be. I mean, I think you would seek legal action. I mean, you've seen, and they're going to fight legal action with everything they do. They try to hit Miami with, these 2 girls basketball players, and now John Ruiz is what? He's suing the NCAA.
Yeah.
And so, I think the NCAA is trying to find their place. They're trying to still have some teeth, but I think that's real hard. And again, I think ultimately, how they handle Tennessee will be a guiding map for what they are going forward. Because if they hit Tennessee, when Tennessee literally, hey, here's everything. They handed over everything. Nobody hands over everything. Then it's going to be a bad look for Tennessee because they, everybody said don't do that, and they did it. And it's going to be a bad look for NCAA. You praise Tennessee for the way they handled this, and yet you still tried to throw the book at them. Ultimately, I think a lot of this gets resolved, and what ends up happening is maybe Tennessee ends up giving another couple of scholarships, and some time on the road recruiting kind of is not there for a week or so. Again, that's something you and I and everybody else really isn't going to notice. The people that will notice it are the coaches. That's it.
Interesting. What is your favorite part of covering recruiting for Tennessee, and how has it changed the most since you first started, Austin?
People. I love people. I love moms and dads and aunts and uncles and kids, and it's amazing. And this isn't a toot my own horn thing, because I think anybody that covers recruiting, if you stood over there in the complex as the players leave through that north entrance, and you put every media guy out there, they're going to naturally come up to the people that have covered them dating back to high school. So, they're going to come up to me. They're going to come up to Hubs if they know Brent, and he still dabbles with the recruiting while overseeing everything. They're going to come up to Matt Ray. They're not going to, necessarily come up to guys that have never talked to them. They don't know those. They might see their face in a press conference, but as far as being comfortable, having a feel, they know me. They know other people that have covered them in recruiting, and so I think that part of it is very beneficial for me. And I just like people, man. I mean, you can always find something to talk about. With Murfreesboro kids, I bring up Toots or Demas's or some restaurant. It's like that kind of everywhere. And, I just think that ultimately how it's changed is social media is so much more of a thing now. Kids are more into the photo shoots, the graphics, the videos than they were 15, 20 years ago. And, again, it's very rare when a kid doesn't put out the eyeball emoji tweet, that draws everybody's attention to their social media platform. But again, now they're being told, hey, the more you're active on social, the better NIL valuation you're going to have, right? The On3 NIL valuation. So the more kids are active on Instagram and Twitter and TikTok and all that stuff, their On3 NIL valuation goes up, and it says, now I'm worth $64,000. Now I'm worth $130,000, and so kids buy into that stuff. And so, not every kid, but a lot of them. And so I think that's probably how it's changed the most.
Which recruit do you think you know the most to this day? Who do you think you got to know the family as a whole? Who do you think you have the best feel for?
I mean, it would be the Mays family. I mean, I'm extremely tight with Cade and Cooper and those guys. And now, obviously I joke with Camp, I'm always telling him I've got my ideas for his commitment video, and 2033 or whatever it is.
Is this the last one, or are there more coming down the pipeline? Is it a
No,
Colquitt situation, or is this it?
no, I mean, Colquitt's had 2.
Yeah,
This would be 3 Mays.
yeah, it's true. Clausen
And
too.
so,
Okay, this is a big
yeah,
one, number 3.
yeah, and Camp's a big guy. But I mean,
Mhm,
I feel like I've got a really good relationship with a lot of guys.
mhm,
And still talk. I mean, I still talk to Trey Smith a ton. I feel really comfortable with all the guys on this staff, or not this staff, but this roster.
mhm,
And again, I think when you can kind of get in on the ground floor and you don't make it about you, and you don't every time you talk to them, it's not for an interview. I think that kids are like, man, I like that guy. He doesn't hound me for quotes every time he sees me, every
mhm,
time he talks to me on the phone. Sometimes he just calls and chews the bull.
mhm,
And I think that's something that resonates with kids is like, and that's why I've always tried. And that's what I respect about Matt Ray is Matt's very much of like mind. It's not every time you talk, it's an interview. And
mhm,
there's a lot of guys that aren't like that. They're not, these kids aren't means to an end. And that's kind of how I've always viewed it is, yeah, I mean, I've still got to do my job. I've still got to do some interviews. I try to make it fun when we do the interviews. I try to let the fans see the personality, which is why I do so much video stuff versus written.
mhm,
Because if he says, "Man, I like Tennessee," that sounds a certain way versus just written word. I
mhm.
like Tennessee. How did he say that? You know what I mean? Like, so I mean, I think that the kids appreciate it so much. But I mean, even guys that never really played, like a Pat Martin.
Hmm.
I mean, you know, I felt like I really knew him. David Oku, same thing. And again, those guys were here for a small minute, and then they weren't.
Yeah. My chops are I just graduated with my master's at UT, and I would just see them around campus sometimes, and I realized I would joke with my buddies here and my wife, or I'd be like, I'm the awkward wave guy with people I know. Like I'm just walking by, and I'll just be like, why did I just wave at Zakai again? Like Zakai, I think I have waved and made eye contact with him 4 times since he's been here, and never had anything to say. I'm like, why am I doing that? I don't have any follow up. I don't have anything to say to Zakai. Like he's just walking. Like I have nothing for him. I have nothing for anybody. I do an awkward wave.
But
It's weird.
it may be awkward to you. For him, it's someone who waved, acknowledged him,
Mhm.
was a friendly face, but didn't come and like hound him.
Yeah.
And so, like, I think that's the other thing is like, you have to understand these kids get hit at every turn, especially
Yeah.
the most popular ones. And so, I think that, you you find a way to not hound them and wear them out.
Mhm.
Um, but I think that they're very reciprocal to someone who just has a friendly wave. So while you may feel like it's awkward, I'd say
Mhm.
they probably appreciate it. Someone who acknowledged them without, needing a 15-minute
Yeah, I
conversation
have
with them.
nothing to say. My dad had an like, love my dad to death. We saw Philip Fulmer walking out of, TBA 2 years ago, I guess. My dad was like, "Whoa," and he had no follow-up. Like, he stopped him and started talking to him and walking out of the building, and just nothing for him. He just was, like, so excited to talk to Philip Fulmer, and I was like, "What's happening? You don't need to do this. We don't need to do the minute and a half with, Philip Fulmer stop and chat." Like, I don't know what he wasn't ready, but, yeah, my dad's about the conversation. It's just, it's not my deal. I don't wanna bother him. Like, here's a peek behind the curtain, Austin. This is a scoop for you. Saw Christian Conyer at the movies with my wife the other night, and I turned around. And I just was like, "Oh, that's Christian Conyer." And I think I was the only one who knew because I mean he's new, he's a rising freshman and all that. I was just like, "Hey, Christian, good luck this spring." And I kept moving and just, "Hey, good. That was cool." I was like, "I know that guy," and he's just doing his own thing, just going to movies. Don't know if he saw cocaine. He did not see Cocaine Bear, I don't think, because I did not see him come into our theater. Now that was fantastic. Highly recommend Cocaine Bear, but especially in Knoxville for the local Knoxville listeners, they all yelled and chanted when they showed Knoxville and like this was a Knoxville story at the beginning of the movie. It was fantastic. It was a fun time. But there you go. Austin, your best Vol Club interview thus far has been what?
Oh man, I would say it's probably Jalen Hyatt.
Hmm.
If I it, my I'm really partial to the first one we did though with Cedric Tillman and
Hmm.
Josiah Jordan James, just because Josiah, um, just I don't know, he played well as kind of a co-host, but also was kind of someone we talked to as well. So I mean, like, um, I let that interview, and I remember seeing him on campus like the next day, and I said, if you play 10 minutes in professionally or 10 years professionally, you need to come back to being an analyst. I mean, like he's engaging, he smiles, he's got a good look to him. I mean, he's a guy that you'll see on the SEC network, in my opinion, if he wants to be.
Do you think he will?
I think there's a real chance of that. I mean, again, I think that when you get done playing professionally or whatever, no matter how long that lasts, no matter what you graduated with, more than likely you're gonna be like, man, I'd rather just I'm around the game. I get to be around the game. I get paid to be around the game. This just sounds a lot more fun than doing blank.
What's your strangest or funniest fan reaction to you in and around Knoxville? Has anyone ever stopped you and been like, I didn't like what you had to say about Tennessee this week? Have you ever been at Savelli's and just someone stopped you and was like, hey, hold on, I didn't like the nation. I didn't know what you said. Have you ever had any of this?
No, because no one will ever tell you to your face. Listen, there was a Volquester who I'm big in, kind of like, because very few people actually understand how it really works. So I've been kind of like, hey man, I'm gonna take you behind the curtain here, and I'll give my number out to people and be like, here, just call me. Let me explain it to you. It'll make more sense. And so there was a guy, and he was, I don't know, he was not happy. And so I'm like, here, just call me. Well, he takes my sit out there for everybody to see. And you know how many people call me? 0. Nobody's gonna have the guts to call me. And no one's gonna have the guts to come up to me and say anything about it to me. They might, poke fun at my weight or whatever on Twitter behind their screen handle, but they're never going to come up to my face and say anything, because that's not what people do, because people, for the most part, are afraid to actually do that in person. And so my weirdest interaction probably was at the Chick-fil-A in Lenore City.
Okay.
I pulled up, and the guy that's standing out there at the drive-thru, he's got his head down in the iPad. He looks at me and goes, I know you. You're AP. I've been hoping you'd come through our store. And while I appreciated his nice comments and comments, I really wanted to reply back with, man, we got to work on some stuff for you. You've been sitting around for me to come. I mean, I'm nobody. And so, but I mean, he was very, very, very nice. And that's what most of the people are. Most people are, I would say 99% are very, very sweet people. A long time ago, and I've always told my wife, I'm like, people that stop me, I'm a nobody, and so I can't imagine being Bob Costas or Jim Nance and how those people are treated when they're going public. Because it happens quite frequently. My kids are always like, "Daddy's so famous, everybody knows my daddy," and I'm like, well, just because of Tennessee football. And, but I made the point a long time ago, when people stop me, I'm going to sit there and talk with them as long as they want to, within reason. If they want to sit there and talk to me for 10 minutes, I will take my time, because I would much rather them walk away from an interaction with me saying that guy is a nice guy than that guy is an a-hole. I don't want anybody saying that. But there are people that are that are not going to like me or Brent Hubbs or Rob Lewis or anybody that never have ever had a conversation with us. They just don't like us just because. And then there are also people that would, blindly follow anything we say just because. And so, I try to take everything with a grain of salt, because for every person that has a nice compliment, there's always somebody sitting there in the wings ready to rip on you on Twitter or on the message board or whatever. So, I just try to approach it and try to be nice to everybody and try to have a good time.
Who would you say of the Volquest staff is the most different than what they seem to be on air or through their writing? Who do you think is the most different, and just in the group of friends and just one of the guys? Who do you think is the most different personality wise?
I think kind of everybody is who they are. Grant's a quiet guy. And I think he reflects that with kind of, he's kind of, got the tongue in cheek sense of humor, and,
very dry.
dry. But I mean, like
Mm-hmm.
again, he can pull a zinger on you in a heartbeat, and he kind of give you that sly grin, and it's funny to me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Hubs, he really is kind of Eeyore. I mean, Debbie Downer,
Mm-hmm.
and he knows that. Rob is who he is. Eric Kane is who he is. Matt Ray. I mean, I think everybody. I don't think anybody's personality on the message board reflects different than their personality in real life. And I think that's a good thing because I think the biggest thing anybody can be is just authentic. I mean, you might think, I always tell people, like, I'm a blunt guy. I say things that most people won't say.
Mm-hmm.
And somebody may think, he's an asshole, but I'm the same guy all the time. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not fake or phony. Like, I just am who I am. And, like, again, you're always going to get an honest opinion of me, from me, whether you like it or not. And, you know, kind of take it or leave it. I mean, some people don't like honesty. They'd rather be told what they want to hear. I'm not that way. I just kind of, if you ask me my opinion on something, I'm going to give it to you. You may not like it, but, you know, I'm not going to sit there and sugarcoat it for you.
I like it. Player coach fans most get wrong currently or got wrong in the past that you knew pretty well personally was who?
Coach or player?
Mm.
Um, Coach wise, I don't know, man. I mean, like, again, the Jeremy Pruitt that I knew
Mm.
was a pretty good guy. Now, again, I'm not saying that he can't be that can't be different in a team room setting or with other people. But it's a pretty good guy. Butch Jones, I think after Butch was fired, Butch was much more humble.
Mm.
And I remember, telling him, I'm like, you need to be that guy. Whenever you resurface, wherever it's at, be that guy. I mean, he worried too much about what the janitor thought or what the person in double Q thought. Like, you
Mm-hmm.
can't think that way and be successful in this league or really in college football in general. Like, you really have to kind of have like a no conscience, like, I don't care what others think. This is the way we're going to do it, mentality. You can't worry about, you know, every little person that's around.
Do you think
And
that's how Heupel's wired?
yeah, I think Heupel is very much wired that way.
Mm.
I think Josh is a very genuine guy, an authentic guy. I mean, like, I hope Josh coaches here for as long as he wants to. Now, I mean, look, college football gets more and more difficult every day.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, could I see him going to the NFL? Yeah. I mean, like,
Mm.
I'm not saying he's doing that. I'm just saying, like, every day there are different challenges. There's more challenges, and so if an NFL team came along and wanted to offer him a bunch of money, I mean, I think he'd be dumb not to go. And it's
Mm-hmm.
just a better life, a different life, and a lot less headache. And but I mean, I don't see him leaving Tennessee for another college job. I mean, everybody brings up Oklahoma. I mean, maybe, but I mean, as long as Bob Stoops is in play there, like, I just don't see that either. And real honestly, I think he likes Tennessee. Like, I remember last year when the Oklahoma job first came open. I mean, he told me and Hubs, he was like, why do people like think that this is just automatic that I would leave? Like,
Mm.
Tennessee is an unbelievable place, and it's like, well, I mean, Tennessee fans are just waiting on the other shoe to drop. And he said, well, they need to understand how great this place is. I said, well, I think they do, but I said, it's been 15 years of one thing after another. And
Mm-hmm.
so, but, I think that for the most part, Tennessee's had a lot of good coaches. I don't mean just head coaches. I'm talking about like assistant coaches the last 15 years, that are, as far as people,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of good human beings. Big fan of Zach Azani, Kevin Scherer, Jay Graham, Walt Wells, Don Mahoney. I mean, these are good people.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think that, you may not like it because the offensive line didn't block one game until you're on, oh, this guy's not good.
Mm-hmm.
Receiver dropped the ball. Oh, this guy's not good. But as far as human beings and people that, loved their time here, loved Tennessee, loved everything about it. Every one of those guys I just mentioned were big fans of Knoxville, big fans of Tennessee, and you know enjoyed their time here.
Tennessee will finish higher than 10th in recruiting for it on 3 in 2024. True or false?
I'm gonna say yes. I don't know if they get to the top 5 though. I think somewhere between 6 and 10 is most likely.
That's good though. Like, I think that's a good place. I
It
think
is
Tennessee
good.
fans would be okay with that, right? Year over year.
Again, like you just want to be close enough, and then rely on the development. You don't have to have. I mean, I get it. It's about honestly though. It's about your evals and who you're beating out. Like Tennessee's class was what 11th, 10th, whatever it was this past year. But like, look who you beat out for those guys. Who did you beat out for David Hobbs and Arion Carter and Jordan Matthews and down the line? You beat out real teams. Like there were years that Butch, especially near the end, he had a good class, but like he was beating out 4-star paper 4-star for beating out McNeese State, or whatever. I mean, like, just wasn't the same. Like this past class was really, really good, and I just think defensively the last 2 classes are where this program takes off. The James Pierce, Josh Josephs, Elijah Herring, Caleb Herring, Jordan Matthews, Jeremiah Thielander, Tyree West, Tyree Weathersby, those players are where it really takes off.
Would it surprise you if Dylan Sampson breaks through as the do-it-all back this year?
Yes.
Really?
And it's not a knock on Dylan Sampson. I'm just not sure that there's so many running backs in the room. I'm just not sure anybody's going to be marquee enough to break through like you're talking about. Do I think he makes more plays this year? Absolutely. He'll get more chances. But the one that I worry most about is Jabari Small, because he's not going through spring. And Dylan Sampson and Jalen Wright have a real chance this spring to slide right by him. And so I'm interested to kind of see how that running back room plays out. And then how quickly can Cam Sullivan pick it up?
I mean, maybe you just I look at Jabari, it's like, do you have the conversation with Jabari like, hey, you're going to be our goal line back. Like, here's the thing. Like, that's already what you were doing last year, the vulture stuff. And it's just you close drives and let Jalen and Dylan do all the stuff until we get inside the red zone. Because I don't know, I just feel like Dylan has the most upside. Is that fair? Like, I think his ceiling's the highest of anyone in that room in terms of what he could actually. Cam is still a huge question mark. I'm not going to throw Cam in that mix. Of the 3 we've seen the most of the last 2 years, I would say.
I mean, maybe he's just smaller. I still think
Yeah.
Jalen Wright's got the most upside. But I think, again, you give Dylan Sampson more opportunities, especially opportunities with the first team offensive line. What does it look like? And I think that's the part we don't know. We just don't know at this point what he looks like getting the ball 19 or 20 times with the first team offensive line.
All right. Last question here. This is something that I thought went under the radar, Austin. Tayven Jackson, I think, leaving now was a mistake. And we're not like this is something that I look at where I'm like, Walt Bell, the offense has not been good. I was going through just what Indiana was last year, 87th in passing offense, 128th in yards per attempt. Obviously an Indiana guy. He's going to have a good opportunity.
Sure.
Tom Allen was almost out of a job this past year. Like, Indiana was really bad. Michael Penix Jr. took off after leaving Indiana to go to UW and following Kalen DeBoer. I think if things go awry for Joe this spring or early on this fall, I think he would have had a real opportunity. I just think the Indiana thing wasn't going anywhere. Were you surprised that he didn't give it at least one more year to see what Joe looked like under his belt?
No. They saw Nico in bowl practice. I mean, I really think that's what it is. I mean, because he didn't even go through. I was surprised he didn't go through spring.
Yeah,
like
just to see.
I'm surprised he didn't make it to the football season. I'm surprised he didn't go through spring. That tells me he wanted easiest path, and he knew his path here was going to be extremely difficult. Getting past Joe, trying to fend off Nico, and I just think ultimately that was kind of why Tayven decided to go ahead and get through spring at Indiana, try to become the guy there, and roll.
Well, that makes sense. 10 seconds or less. This is a quick one-word answer. Nico Iamaleava starts more or less than 3 games this year for Tennessee.
Less.
Okay, there you go.
I'm on the Joe. I'm on the Joe. I think Joe can hold on to it. I think, again, more mature, more reflective, understands it. I think if Hendon is never here, I don't think Joe sees his potential. I think the fact that Hendon was here and then became the guy, and Joe didn't do what every other prospect does, which is I'm out of here. Even just transfer down, he kind of stuck in there, was a good teammate, and ended up living with Hendon this past fall. I think that opened the eyes for Joe, and I think Joe has I'm not saying he's going to win the Heisman, because I don't think that, but I think Joe has a really good year this year, and Nico will play in his 4 games and go from there.
Yeah, I think we all want Joe to win, and I think Tennessee fans as a whole are grateful for Joe to stick around and what he did for Hendon. I think everyone wants it to work out. Austin, I was in the building when Harrison Bailey chants were deafening for Pitt, Tennessee 2 years ago, and that's not an easy one to chant. Like, that was not something around me where people were like, "Where's Harrison?" Like, everyone, that was the thing, is "Where's Harrison?" all around Tennessee. Nico's an easy one to chant. Nico is just going to still be on the sidelines. I just think the pressure is going to be something that you can't really forecast until game week, until it's 35-27 against UTSA at home in the third quarter. Like, or maybe 17-13 against UTSA in the third quarter, where it's like, this is getting a little easy, because UTSA is on the calendar. That's the one I've circled where I'm like, I think that's going to be a close dogfight. Like, UTSA is really good. And I don't know if Tennessee fans are ready for UTSA to give Tennessee a good game at home, but I don't know. I think it's a different beast that Joe has not seen yet, of just having a 5-star superstar around campus who's going to be the most notable guy on the roster.
Which is why those young defensive guys taking a step helps the whole situation.
Yeah.
And it's not, Joe's not Hendon. Anybody that thinks that he's going to be is going to be mistaken. But again, Joe still has a skill set that I think can resonate with most. And so, I understand that there's going to be a Nico shadow there, but at the same time, that's a fan-driven thing. The fans that you pointed out wanted Harrison Bailey. Harrison Bailey is nowhere to be found.
Right.
Like, that's not a knock.
And I'm not saying they're right. I'm just saying it's going to be there. Like, that's going to be looming in the background. The fans just screaming.
But if anybody over there, Joe's unaffected by such things. They can chant Nico all they want to. He's unaffected.
There you go. Austin Price, we can watch you over on the Volquest YouTube page, Volquest podcast, very good mailbag shows. You do the Ball Club Confidential that folks can go check out. You had Griffin Merritt today on the program.
Merritt.
There you go. He looks 37. Griffin Merritt is one of the oldest looking Tennessee baseball players I've ever seen.
He sounds 37 too.
Really, he does.
Really smart kid, articulate, big fan of his.
There you go. I love it. Tennessee plays at home this weekend, so I'll probably get out for at least one of those this weekend. All that good stuff. Subscribe today, volquest.com. It's cheap, easy to use, and all that great stuff. Go join the General's Quarters, all the good stuff. Then you can see AP and his gifts and all that good stuff. Austin, thank you so much, and we'll have to reconvene again soon.
All right. Sounds good, Chase.